So one thing that you see anytime there's any sort of like edged weapon knife attack is you'll tend to see the attackers utilizing this other arm as a post. And the reason for this is to keep this person from coming in, meaning that as I'm sitting here stabbing, slashing, I'm using this post to keep them at bay so that they can't get access to the weapon. It just makes it easier for me to sit here and continuously attack them, and I'm able to keep them from rushing me. I'm able to keep them from closing the distance, whatever. So the question becomes, how do we deal with these posts, especially in a weapons-based environment? If we're talking simply of like a long post across the full torso of the body, right? The question is always going to be, well, do I focus on this first or do I focus on the weapon first? Because the more that I sit here and pressure back in, I know that this weapon's coming. I know that they're going to be looking to do damage. Whether they're just going to town like a sewing machine or they're just kind of pacing it out a little bit, I'm going to be in trouble. So the longer I hang out here, the worse I'm going to be. So I have to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to break this post essentially and close the distance, but I'm not necessarily going to be able to push in here even if there's not that much of a size difference. This is a very difficult frame to post, especially if they've got like the good posture, meaning that they're past like the 90 degree. If they're at that 45, it's gonna be very difficult for me to be able to collapse it. If they were at a 90 degree or I managed to kind of get in here and they're a little bit closer, then yeah, he can push all he wants. I'm gonna be able to close that distance. But if they have a nice good extended grip like this, it's gonna be hard. Now, if he's even grabbing material, grabbing my shirt, hoodie, whatever, it's also just gonna add elements and layers to this. So the best advice I can give you is we want to start working towards the outside of the post. And we're going to start off by talking with this one. We'll go over a few different posts as well. But in general, if we're dealing with this crossbody post, I want to start working towards the outside. Now, to put this into perspective, if he's just pressuring into me, I'm not going to use my hands at this point. As he pressures into me, he wants to try and keep me in front of him. I'm just going to start walking my way towards the outside. And if you notice, if he just kind of stays there, it's going to be very difficult for him to stay in front of me, which means that if he was like slow motion attacking me, the more that I'm able to do this, he has to adjust and square up his body in front of me in order to continue working any form of those strikes. So in theory, my ability to work on the outside of this elbow is going to do wonders for me, especially because the closer I get to the elbow, the harder it is for him to post and the easier it is for me to start collapsing that post altogether, which means that I can start closing the distance. Now, adding a layer to this, right? I'm going to obviously be wanting to use my hands as much as possible. Now, my near side hand, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to just kind of like parry and block this strike and the blade essentially as much as I can, whether I'm striking at the wrist, if I'm striking at the bicep, if I'm using kind of like a forearm block, it doesn't matter. I'm just doing whatever I can to kind of stop this. As I now take my other hand, I'm looking to get behind the elbow and tricep area a little bit. And essentially what I want to do is just drive this arm across and I'm collapsing my body in at the same time. Or as I drive this, I'm working my hips again to the outside so that if he were to do any damage, he has to completely square back up to me. But again, at that point, once I get to the side, I'm immediately looking to grab whatever I can. And ultimately, I'm looking to get either a crossbody grip or I'm looking to work all the way around to the outside and back of his body to where now maybe I can take control of the back, I can take him to the ground, I can do what I want to do from there. If he was wearing any form of like a long sleeve or a hoodie, then I'm going to take that same hand and instead of necessarily posting on the arm, I can actually grab the material, right? Even a t-shirt, you can kind of get away with this a little bit, but I'm grabbing the material and essentially I'm just going to stiff arm their arm across from their body. So if I were doing that, I'm able to kind of lock their arm out here, which makes it very difficult if he was trying to turn back into me, right? I'm able to kind of keep this arm at bay by just shoving that material as far away from him as possible. So now as I'm driving this arm away, I can use that as an opportunity to again, work my hips around to the back, get control, whether I'm grabbing like the actual waistband, I'm grabbing his belt, so just grabbing his hip bone, whatever I need to do to suck myself into him and keep that distance close so that again, he has to completely break that gap and work all the way around. And now I'm just kind of fighting for the back. Again, it's going to be scrambled to some extent, but I'm working on trying to get some form of a crossbody seatbelt, some form of control where I can isolate this arm, outside, inside, doesn't matter. And then again, we're looking to kind of take him down from there. Now, if he is grabbing material, right, I can still work to do these same things. It's going to be obviously a little bit more difficult because as I start driving this arm across, it's also now impacting my shirt, which means that if he starts kind of stiff arming my arm or his arm away, it's also going to make it very difficult for me to be able to close that distance. So I might have to either just aggressively do this and drive in with the intent of like, I'm going to stretch or rip my shirt, or you might have one where I'm actually going to turn and rip my own shirt and then immediately look to kind of press back in. Because again, me simply just kind of ripping and running away may not necessarily be the best option. One, if I'm not in an area that I can run, or two, if he's fast enough, he's going to catch right back up to me. So it might have to literally be one where I turn, rip the shirt, and I immediately drive right back in to again, close the distance now that the post is no longer an impact. Now, if we're talking about like a same side post, now again, that we can talk in the sense of same idea. If he's grabbing the actual shirt material and driving my shirt back, or if he's just simply kind of posted up on my chest here and again, preventing me from coming in. This actually works a little bit more in your favor of actually coming towards the front because of the fact that he's kind of pushing my body there already. So if I'm driving in and he's pushing me back, if I just kind of fight this head on, we're gonna be here. But if I kind of acknowledge the motion that he's pushing me, I can actually just kind of rotate my hips a little bit like this, and I can actually do like a nice quick uppercut and just kind of rock them a little bit. Now again, if he's striking with the knife, I might have to kind of sit here and block this, but I can also just, again, we're gonna have to acknowledge that there's a chance that you're gonna get cut and stabbed anytime we're dealing with weapons, so just accept that. But if I can sacrifice one block for a good uppercut to kind of rock them, maybe follow in with an overhand, now I can use that as an opportunity to close the distance, or if I had a weapon, I can use that as an opportunity to draw that, get the distance, draw what I need to draw, and again, we can kind of deal with the situation from there. If he is grabbing the material itself and kind of driving that shirt back a little bit, again, it's gonna be very difficult for me to come in this manner, so I can either work that uppercut, same idea, because again, he's still kind of pushing my shoulder that way. I can still kind of turn and rip the shirt, or I can kind of get like a two-hand grip, step back grip, and immediately I can follow up. Either way, the premise is I have to acknowledge and deal with the grips at hand, because ultimately, these grips are preventing me from getting to the blade. Now, this entire process, no matter what the grip is, I still have to do my best to kind of block this. I can't just get solely focused on dealing and wrapping up and doing whatever, because this attack is still happening. So I still kind of have to kind of parry, I have to kind of work, whether I can just kind of clear these arms a little bit. If he's posting cross body and I can work around, I'm still actively trying to do all of that while also doing my best to my ability of just kind of blocking and parrying with the bladed weapon or whatever it is that he's attacking me with. Now, the last one that you'll kind of see is some form of a collar tie. And again, this can either be that he's just scooping the back of my head or he's actually grabbing the back of my collar. And again, it's done in the manner that he's preventing me from pulling away, but he's also using it as an opportunity to pull me in tight so that as I'm trying to back away, he's pulling me back in to continuously attack. Now, the nice thing about the collar tie is he's pulling me in closer most of the time. So I'm actually able to close that distance. If he's aggressively pulling me in, I can actually kind of work like the flashlight grip that baseball grip that we've talked about, and I can get my head pressure in here. I can start driving in a little bit. And now from here, even if he does have a collar tie, or let's say he even switches it to a single hand and he starts kind of pushing my shirt back, right? Just grab the collar, then I can easily use that as a transition and kind of just work off. So almost the collar tie actually works in my favor because of the fact that he's pulling me in. But if he's grabbing just say like the back of my shirt and he's just kind of using it to keep me neutralized, right? Not pulling me in, but not pushing me back, I still need to look to close the distance. One way that I can do that is actually take the same side arm, come all the way up right by the wrist. I'm going to drop this hard. Now, I'm not necessarily dropping this with the intent of getting this grip free. I'm using this to get towards like an inside control. So as I bring this arm up and I drive this arm down, I want to stay as close to the wrist as possible. As I start driving this elbow down, notice I'm driving my body, my head in. This arm's now coming all the way around to, again, get far hip control. I'm driving my head in, working towards pinning or isolating this arm, ultimately working towards some form of split seatbelt grip. And then once again, we can look to take the person down from there, do the damage we need to do, isolate the threat, and get out of there safely. So at the end of the day, anytime somebody is attacking you with a weapon and they've got any form of a post on you, whatever the case is, understand that yes, ultimately our goal is to pressure in. However, there might be times where I actually have to pull back to then re-enter the entanglement just as a means to break the grip. Otherwise, any ways that I can work towards the outside of the arm, any ways that I can isolate the arm, any ways that I can kind of just collapse and break my way in, that's ultimately what I'm looking to do. But you have to figure it out quickly. You're gonna have to figure it out on the fly, because at the same time that you're dealing with that, understand that they're still attacking you and stabbing you or doing whatever they need to do to cause harm or damage to your body. So do what you need to do, break those grips, get in there aggressively, do the damage, and get out of there safely. Stay safe.